ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಗುಡ್ ಈವ್ನಿಂಗ್.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಅಪ್ಪ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಓಕೆ
ಮೇಡಮ್, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ GK ಇಂದ ಬೇರೆ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಮೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಬಿಸಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ದ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll start.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಶುಭ ಸಂಜೆ, ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್ ಈವ್ನಿಂಗ್.
ಇದು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ.
Today we have with us Dr. Vijayalakshmi DEGA madam. Before starting the session, I would like to welcome Dr. Vijayalakshmi DEGA madam on behalf of KSTA and on behalf of all the teachers and students who have joined with us in this WebEx platform, as well as who are watching this session in YouTube live session. I welcome to you all, and I would like to welcome all my technical team, non-technical team, and also other teachers and the student fraternity. Welcome to today's session. Before starting today's session, I would like to give brief introduction about Dr. Vijayalakshmi madam. Currently, she is working as an emeritus scientist in ICAR in the Department of FSN, ESGKVK Bengaluru, with 35 years of teaching and research experience. She has also served as a panel member of FSSAI Scientific Committee on Functional Foods, Nutraceuticals, Dietetic Products, and other similar products, and presently in Nutrition and Fortification Scientific Committee. During her teaching and research career, she obtained several research grants, acted as a principal investigator as well as co-principal investigator for projects funded by USAID, ESTA, IFAD, IFPRI, Indo-German, NATP, NAIP, and Government of Karnataka. As part of these projects, she visited USA, Australia, Germany to develop teaching material and planning research activities. She has also collaborated in entrepreneurship development program in Ghana, Africa, and she is an active member of editorial board and executive committees for professional societies, and has authored, edited several books and published research articles in national and international journals. She has received many awards and recognitions, out of which I would like to mention few here. The national level, she is awarded as a fellow of KSTA, Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, and recognized as a member of National Assessment and Accreditation Council, which is known as NAC, Government of India, in the year of 2018 for accreditation of universities. And she recognized as a scientific panel member of Food Safety Standards Authority of India, FSSAI, in the year 2018 from the Government of India. Apart from that, she has received many institution level awards, which I would like to mention few of here. Mahila Hombelaku, JP Samajaratna Prashasti, and at university level she has received many certification, merit awards, and she has published more than 90 research papers, and popular articles are more than 85, books 13, and book chapters are 13, and extension study materials 45, and conference abstracts and papers 45. Apart from that, she has carried out many national projects and international projects, and currently she has guided more than MSc 22 MSc students and 10 PhD students. Apart from that, madam has participated in many national and international conferences, published many presentations, and received awards, and her special assignments are training at Purdue and Iowa State Universities under USAID ALO projects in the year of 2005 in USA, and participated as advisor on the perspective on women's entrepreneurial groups in an African context from January 2010 at Ghana, Africa, and visited Latobe University, Australia, to discuss regarding the study abroad program in the year 2012, and attended many Germany workshops. And she is a member and general editorial board general reviewer for Karnataka Journal of Agriculture Science, Mysore Journal of Agriculture, Journal of Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and Asian Journal of Dairy and Food Research, and Research Journal of Ganpat University. With this brief introduction, I would like to welcome you once again, madam. And thank you for accepting our invitation in the short notice to deliver this session, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am, please.
Yeah.
Yes, madam. Now it's sharing, ma'am.
It's okay?
Yes, ma'am, it's fine.
Okay.
Try to change the slide, ma'am. Just for
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes, ma'am. The visibility is good now.
Sir, is it completely visible or there's some
Yes,
disturbance?
it is completely visible.
Okay, because we are having some disturbance
On
here.
top, there is some disturbance. That's it.
No, we
Just-
have
Okay.
full screen slideshow. We have complete slideshow.
Sir, एक ही minute sir, थोड़ा
Okay.
1 minute.
that suddenly if it comes. No?
If it's in the PDF format, you can check that also, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
We're-
So now it should come.
No, we are not able to see, ma'am.
No, sir.
Not
Now,
fine.
Now
just a
we'll
second.
put. Yeah, now?
Yeah,
Is
now
it
fine,
okay?
ma'am. Now fine, ma'am.
Okay.
Slideshow we have to give. Yes.
Yes. So you can see, right?
You can see it
Yes,
now?
yes, we can see, ma'am, but slideshow has to be given.
It's in slideshow. Now is it not a slideshow?
No, here we can see thumbnail views.
Oh. It was playing till now.
It was okay.
That's what.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it slideshow now?
Yeah, it's in slideshow.
Okay.
Right.
Some small patches are coming on the slides, but it's not an issue. You can read everything.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Please go ahead, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just a second, sir. Now is the patch gone?
Only at the corners are there. Not an issue.
Okay.
Bottom corners.
Yeah. Good evening to all. I'm Vijayalakshmi, and then my RA Barbai Mrunal. Today I'm going to speak on role of macro and micronutrients in human nutrition. So the presentation covers introduction, and then what is the status of malnutrition in our country, macronutrients for their food sources, macronutrients, what are the deficiencies, micronutrients and their food sources, which covers both minerals and vitamins, and their deficiency. Then, of course, every one of us should know what is the RDA, that is recommended dietary allowance. Then about the balanced diet, which we call it as my plate. And then consumption of processed foods, and some tips for adolescents to eat healthy foods. A small introduction. In the future, all of you're going to be a medical doctors or engineers or a scientist. But the day always starts with food, isn't it? So food and nutrition plays a very important role. So what is a food? Food, when it is digested and then assimilated in the body, what exactly happens? It maintains and for the growth. It also gives you energy for whatever the regular activities you want to do. It also contains both macro and micronutrients, which are called as chemical constituents. The macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and micronutrients are minerals and vitamins, and water also plays a very important role along with the fiber. If the balance is not maintained within these macro and micronutrients, it definitely results in malnutrition. So there is an index which we call it as Global Hunger Index. The recent report says, that is 2022, the undernourishment is 16.3%, child stunting is 35.5%, child wasting is 19.3%, and mortality, that is the death rate, is 3.3%. So you know the child stunting is 35.5%, which is really alarming. So before going to what is the role of macro and micronutrients, we should know what is the status of malnutrition and why does it occur. So in India, there are certain key indicators. The first indicator is it can be due to child feeding practices and nutritional status of children. Okay, so that is especially within the 1 hour of the birth, then 6 months, you have to have exclusive breastfeeding from the mother. Then by the 8th month, you should see, that is after 6 months, semi-solid food and breast milk. And then you have to have the adequate diet. So you can see the first from 75 to 80, which we have collected. Here, when you compare between rural and urban, and then the total, you can see the highest is in 63.7%, because the child under age of 6 months exclusively breastfed. Then it is continued with if it doesn't receive proper semi-solid food after 6 months. So the total is really alarming. You can see the first one is 41.8 point, then 63.7, and then 45.9. So within 2 years, if these things are not taken care, then it goes more than 50% are malnutrition. Let us come from 81 to 85. This is after the child is 5 years, because we call it as preschooler. So the child, when it is stunted or wasted or severely wasted, because here we compare having height for weight, weight for height, weight for age. So all this comparison, if you see, the highest is 35.5%, which is the stunted is the maximum, followed by weight for age, that is the underweight. So still it exists, that is underweight as well as the stunted. Let us go to the age of 15 to 49 years, where we call them as the adults. So you take from 86 to 91, the item numbers. Here the body mass index, in the next slide, I will show you how to calculate the body mass index. So in this BMI, that is, if we are below 18.5 kg, then there is the percentage of 18.7 the total. So it is more in the rural area also underweight is, as it is more, and a little less in urban area. Then that is, this is for women. But when you take for men, here you can see the same trend follows, the more in the case of rural areas, because the workload is very much when compared to that of the urban areas. Then of course the alarming situation is, you see the figures from 88 to 91. Here there is more of obesity. That means it is not only undernutrition, it is also overnutrition. So anything of undernutrition and overnutrition, we classify that as malnutrition. So you can see that there are some ratios of 33, 29 to 13, 13 to 29. But when you take waist by hip ratio, which causes the abdominal obesity and which leads to cardiovascular diseases, there is nearly more than 50% in the case of both men and women, which is a very alarming situation. So next, let us see the other indicators. This is anemia. Anemia among children, it is more than 60% are anemic, because the normal level is 12. So if it is less than 12, then it is called as the anemic, that is the mild and moderate. So here you can see all the figures here, more than 50% of the females, that is a non-pregnant and pregnant women, all of them come under anemic. But when you take the men, it is little less. It ranges from 25 to 31. But still, even now, it may not be but it is half of the values of women And so you have to take care, because even men and school boys are also, that is 13 to 15 years where we conducted our research work, there also you have moderate anemia among the boys. Then you take blood sugar level, which is now all of you are aware of diabetes. So the data is from 15 years to above. You can say that 99 to 101. The figures here you can see there is 6 to 13.5 of them in the levels of 141 to 160, above 160 or above 140. So the percentage is very high. It is also there both as well as rural as well as the urban. Then when you take men, the men also have got, men the figures are little higher when compared to that of the female in the diabetes. That is, they have more than 7 and it goes to 15.6, and irrespective of urban and rural, it is 17.9 and 14.5 respectively. So the situation you can see, it is the figures of 19 to 21. So now next when we come to figures, I really there will be a more increase to it also, which has to be taken care. So then it is the hypertension among adults, that you call it as blood pressure. So when we are taking the index after 15 years to above, here also you can see from 105 to 107 among women, it ranges from 5.2 to 21.3. So there is the highest elevated blood pressure, which is very high. So here they usually have the lot bit of taking medicine to control it. And then you have among men also, it ranges from 5.7 to 24. So for the total, it is 21.3 in the women and 24 in the male members. So with this, here we have told you, how do we calculate the body mass index? So with these indicators, you have the indicators of underweight, you have the indicators of obesity, you have the child indicators, then you have the preschool indicators, and then hypertension and diabetes. So the situation is that there is an undernutrition, irrespective of the malnutrition, whether it is underweight or the overweight. Then you have the BMI, all of you can calculate. You have to take your weight, which are in kgs, and divide by the height, that is a meter squared. So the classification by the WHO is, if it is below 18.5, it is underweight. 18.5 to 24.9 is normal. Then pre-obesity, 25 to 29.9. And of course, obesity is classified into 3 groups, class 1, class 2, and class 3, which ranges from 30 to 34.9, 35 to 39.9, and above 40 kgs per meter square. So now let us come. So this is a small introduction which I have given you with a statistic saying that when we talk about nutrition, there still exists malnutrition. So we have to take a lot of care with our diet. So what is a diet? A diet is which is component, that is a nutrition and nutrients. So in the diet you have macronutrients and as well as micronutrients. So first let us cover what are macronutrients and their food sources. The most important are carbohydrates, proteins, as well as the fats. So in the carbohydrate, the main source of this carbohydrate is energy, and 1 gram gives you 4 calories. And then you have, which is classified into monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. So in the monosaccharides, you have fructose, glucose, and galactose. And disaccharides, you have sucrose, which we call it as table sugar. And you also have lactose. And then you have the maltose. In polysaccharides, which are very, very important, you have the starch, glycogen, and the dietary fiber. So which are the foods you should consume to get all these carbohydrates, that is whole grains? So I have given the pictures towards the left side. You have to have all the grains, that irrespective of the rice, wheat, the millets, and then corn. So all these, that is the maize. So all these grains, they have the carbohydrates, and then some amount in the pulses, and then milk and milk products, fruits, as well as vegetable. Usually our diet, it should cover 45 to 65% of the calories from the carbohydrates. But in India, we eat lot of cereal, that is 70 to 80% of our total dietary calories we derive from the cereals, millets, and pulses. And of course, the most important here, the daily intake of dietary fiber, now it is 40 grams per 2000 of calories. So next macronutrient is proteins. Why do you require proteins? Carbohydrates are for energy. Proteins are for growth and maintenance of body, and it constitutes 20% of body weight. And here, interestingly, along with carbohydrates, it gives 1 gram is equivalent to 4 calories of energy, which is similar to that of the carbohydrates. And then proteins, again, they are classified into, we have the simple proteins, then we have conjugated proteins as well as the derived proteins. And most important is they are made up of amino acids, that is simpler chemical substances. So these amino acids are again classified, you must have heard about this, essential and non-essential. Essential is we require through the diet because it is not synthesized in the body, whereas non-essential to certain extent they are synthesized in the body. The most important essential are methionine, lysine, leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan, valine, threonine, phenylene, histidine, and also for children you require arginine. In the case of non-essential, you have alanine, aspartame, cysteine, glutamate, glutamine, glycine, proline, and serine. So which are the foods you should consume? The most important are all animal foods, the bioavailability is more. That is the meat and meat products, eggs. And then milk and milk products have good amount of protein. Pulses, all the pulses and legumes, nuts and oilseed, that irrespective of you have the picture cashew nuts, then you have the almonds, and then you have the groundnuts or the peanuts. And then we require 10 to 35% of energy should come from protein, whatever you are consuming. And third is the most important is the fat. So all of you know about the fat because there are trans fats, saturated fats and unsaturated. Then you also have mono and poly unsaturated fats. And here 1 gram of fat gives 9 calories of energy, whereas in carbohydrates and protein it is 4 calories. The fats are made up of the chemical substance which we call it as fatty acids. And there are EFA, which are very important essential fatty acids. That is linoleic, linolenic, and arachidonic. So the food sources are, of course, all of you know, it is the butter or the oils or the vanaspati, whatever it is, all the fats and oils. But here in the case of fats, you have two types. One is visible fats and another one is invisible fats. So the visible fats are the one which you see in the oil, which is greasy and oily. But when you see the nuts and oilseed, for example, you take a groundnut or a peanut, you cannot see the oil inside. It's only found inside, but it's not visible outside. So that we consider it as invisible, and what we see is the visible. So the lean meat also contains a lot of fat. Then you have the fish, and then you have meat products also. They contain good amount of fat. And accordingly, you need 20 to 30% of calories should come from fat. And then if there is a deficit, because of obesity is excess, if there is a deficit in the skin gets affected, which we call it as pheroderma. So let us summarize this about the macronutrients, the carbohydrates. I have told you it is for the intestinal health, for the energy, and for the central nervous system. And what are the sources are the starchy foods, roots and tubers, and it includes apart from cereals, it includes the vegetables and beans also. But here the most important, you have indigestible carbohydrate, which we call it as fiber. So what is their role? They help in lowering of blood cholesterol. It moves waste from the body. It decreases the coronary heart diseases. It reduces the constipation and also maintains the normal blood glucose. So what are the food sources you should consume to have all these functions? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains. These are very, very important, and functional fiber synthesized or isolated from plants or animals. Then coming to the next, protein. As we have already spoken about it, for the body growth, for the maintenance as well as tissue repair, immune function, and it is very important for hormones and enzymes. And when the energy is not sufficient from carbohydrates, proteins helps to release the energy. So the products are all animal foods, as well as the legumes, and then you have the nuts and oil seeds. Then the fats. The fats are for the normal growth or development, and maximum is for the energy. But one thing you should remember, they help in the storage or transportation of vitamin A, D, E, and K, which we call it as fat-soluble vitamins. And it provides cushion for the organs, and it also maintains the cell membrane. And then you have the food sources, all the fats and oils, and meat and dairy products. In this, water plays a very important role because it maintains the temperature, it helps in the transportation of the food inside as well as the excretion, and then all the foods and beverages. So you need at least, we say, 6 to 8 glasses of water, which covers 1.5 liter. And it can come even through the foods, because when you consume raw vegetables and some fruits also, they contain more than 80 to 90% of the moisture. So the next, so I have summarized this. Now let us see, suppose if you don't take properly or inadequate of these macronutrients, what exactly happens in the body? The first one, when you are deficit with carbohydrates, what happens? Specific cells of human body like neurons need high amounts of glucose, so they get affected. Then you have absence of adequate gluconeogenesis, that is breakdown of amino acids that are obtained from dietary proteins. So it should not do this because they will not help in the growth. Then sometimes gluconeogenesis mostly take place in the liver. And then suppose if there is insufficiency for a longer time, it can lead to ketosis, which we call it as production of the ketone bodies. That is characterized by the peculiar sweet odor of the patient's breath. And then, so the ketosis will lead to other complications. So you have to have at least 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrate in your diet, at least. Then what are the deficiency of proteins? As you know, in the function itself, we have told you, it is the most is for the growth gets affected. And then what exactly happens is PEM, that is protein energy malnutrition is a condition. In this, it occurs only in children, which we call it as kwashiorkor and marasmus. So what is kwashiorkor and marasmus, and what is the difference? So you can see the picture here, the kwashiorkor child and marasmic child. So what is the difference? In the kwashiorkor child, they have sufficient energy, but the proteins is lacking. But in the case of marasmus, both are lacking, that is both protein as well as energy. So you see the difference here. In children whose diet is deficit in protein, and in children marasmus, both are deficit. And in the kwashiorkor case, it is from 6 months to 3 years of age. But in the marasmic, it is under 1 year of age. Here, subcutaneous fat is preserved. In marasmic child, it is not preserved. And there is accumulation of water in kwashiorkor child, which we call it as edema. But in the case of marasmic child, it is dehydration. Then there is an enlarged fatty liver, and there is no fatty liver. Then the child is always lethargic. Here in the marasmic child, it is irritable. So then there is a poor diet, appetite, and voracious feeder. And in the case of kwashiorkor child, there is muscle wasting, mild or sometimes absent. But here in the marasmic child, severe muscle wasting occurs also. So the person suffering from kwashiorkor should contain or should take adequate amount of proteins, whereas the marasmic child should take both protein, carbohydrates, and also the fat. So what happens with the deficiency of fat? As I have mentioned you, there is a symptom which we call it as pheronoderma. It's a nutritional deficiency syndrome of the skin. And that is, what are the clinical symptoms of it? Especially diminished growth in children and infants. And there will be scaly-like appearance, and it is a dry skin. And then it reduces the wound healing and also infection. That is, it increases the infection susceptibility. So next, let us start. I have covered the macronutrients. Now let us go to micronutrients and their food sources, which are minerals and vitamins. I'm sure all of you know the important minerals are calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, chloride, magnesium, iron, copper, iodine, cobalt, fluorine, and zinc. And most important, the body function essential ones are calcium and phosphorus. All of you know the calcium and phosphorus are for bones, for the formation of bones as well as the teeth. And when you talk about sodium, potassium, and chloride, because we call it as the electrolytes. So these are for maintaining the water balance, acid-base balance also. Then you have iron and copper, which is for hemoglobin. That is, I told you there is conjugated proteins which have got the globulins. So hemo is the pigment. So it combines with it and hemoglobin is formed. Then you have the iodine, or if you are aware of iodine, it helps in the functioning of the thyroid gland. So the most important are the macronutrients in the macro minerals. These are calcium and phosphorus. It is a major element in the body, and formally it helps in the skeletal function and for the bones and teeth. And it also has the calcium for the neuromuscular excitation, blood coagulation, and also for membrane permeability. During lactation, it helps for the milk secretion. You need to get 20 to 30% of calcium is diet is absorbed, and it gets influenced by vitamin D. So try to remember calcium should have proper vitamin D also in the body. The phosphorus helps for the cells, bones, teeth, and maintaining acid-base balance. What are the foods we should take to have adequate calcium and phosphorus? All the milk and milk products, irrespective of curds, cheese, butter, all of them are rich sources of calcium. Then you have the tofu, which we call it as paneer. They are good sources. And among the millets, ragi, which we call it as finger millet, it contains 330 milligram per 100 grams. Then you have the green beans, then you have the green leafy vegetables. In the case of phosphorus, all the animal foods and whole cereals and milk, they're rich sources. So when we talk about the magnesium, sodium, chloride, and potassium. So here we say extracellular fluids and intracellular fluids, which are very important, especially the sodium, potassium, and chlorine. In the case of magnesium, it helps in bone mineralization. It also helps in the body building, muscular contraction, immunity, and it is also cofactor for many of the enzymatic reaction. The sodium, chlorine, and potassium, they maintain fluid and electrolyte balance. And also for nerve impulse, and chlorine is for it aids in digestion, and potassium helps in the cell integrity. And the food sources, of course, all of you know, that is the salt. The salt contains the sodium. You also have it in soya sauce, bread, milk, and meat, and of course, fish also. Then you have food sources of magnesium, all the green leafy vegetables, green beans, tomato juice, and then sunflower seeds, paneer, they are rich sources of magnesium. And for the potatoes, that is for the potassium, the potatoes, then green leafy vegetables, tomatoes, grapefruits, watermelon, banana, and also the tender coconut water, the milk, they are all rich sources of potassium. In the next mineral list, I told you about the malnutrition, that is anemia. Iron plays a very important role. So when there is a deficit, we call it as nutritional anemia. So iron, it is a part of the protein, that is hemoglobin, which carries oxygen throughout the body cells. And it contains, and also it has certain metal enzymes. It is also part of myoglobin. It is stored in the body as ferritin, and then the iron requirement increases, especially during adolescence, expecting mother, and lactation. And it also helps in the absorption of iron. But one thing you have to remember, there are some inhibiting factors, especially if there is excess of phytates, lead, they hinder the iron absorption. What are the food sources you have to take? All the animal foods are rich sources of iron. Then you have the whole grains, nuts, seeds, pulses, green leafy vegetables, and also the puffed rice, and then dry grapes. They're all rich, which we call it as raisins. They're all rich sources of iron. Then you have the iodine, which has got a thyroid hormones that help to regulate the growth, development, and metabolic rate. And of course, iodine is needed for the thyroid hormones, especially the thyroxine and triiodothyronine. In the food sources, it is the salt. All of you know the fortified salt. Then it is the animal protein foods. All the vegetables which are grown near the sea area and all the seafoods, they contain good amount of iodine. Along with it, there are some fortified foods. For example, there are cheese, there are bread, there are cereals and milk. They're all fortified with iodine. Then zinc. Zinc is playing a very important role because it is a part of the 100 enzymes. Then it is involved, especially for the genetic material, that is DNA and proteins. It helps in the normal development of the fetus, and it transports vitamin A, taste perception, wound healing, and sperm production. It supports healthy immune system. The food sources are mushrooms are good sources, and then you have the There are all the animal foods, they're rich source of, then whole green cereals, tomato, green beans, even the yogurt, that is the curd, they are rich sources, and the paneer, along with cheese. So the micronutrients, then now let us go to vitamins. So I have completed the minerals where you learned about the calcium and phosphorus for the bones and the teeth. And then you have the electrolytes, that is sodium, potassium, as well as chlorine for the electrolyte and acid-base balance. The zinc, which is very, very important for the growth. And also you have the other minerals, which are all play a very important role. That is the iodine for the thyroid hormones and also to have the growth. Let us now go to vitamins. The vitamins, as all of you are aware, there are two classification: fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. In the case of fat-soluble vitamins, you have vitamins A, D, E, and K, which I have mentioned in the macronutrient fat, which requires fat for the storage as well as for the transportation. And in the case of water-soluble, you have all the B complex and vitamin C, which has got thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, pyridoxine, folic acid, as well as the cobalamin. Let us take the first one, vitamin A, which is also called as retinol. And then in the keratin, it gets to retinol in the body from keratin to retinol. It is essential for normal vision, that is the eyesight. And it also for the maintaining the integrity of epithelial tissues. It supports skin, bone, and tooth growth, and then helps in the immunity as well as the reproduction. It is also necessary for the bodily functions, including the production of vision pigments, and it gives resistance to infectious agents and maintains the health in many epithelial cells. And also disease results from both. Here you have to remember the deficiency in excess also leads to disorders. And what are the food sources? All the animal foods. And then especially for the keratins, you have that pigment which we got yellow, orange, and red. That is, you have the carrots, mango, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, as well as the green leafy vegetables. Vitamin D, which all of you call it as sunshine vitamin, that is a calciferol. It promotes bone mineralization, and then there are two forms actually. It is D2 and D3. The D2 it is called as pre-vitamin D, that is ergocalciferol, and D3 cholecalciferol. So what are its main functions? It helps in the absorption of calcium and phosphorus from the intestine, and there assists in maintaining calcium homeostasis. And it's also receptor for most of the cells. The food sources are self-synthesis. You can get it from the sunlight and fortified milk. You have the egg yolk, liver, fatty fish, and also the most of the grains as well as the green leafy vegetables. And then you have the vitamin A, which we also call it as tocopherol. Okay, so alpha tocopherol is used by the human body. Its main role, that is antioxidant, that is scavenging loose electrons, so-called free radicals that can damage cells. So it acts as an antioxidant and protects it. It's a regulation of oxidative reactions, supports cell membrane, prevents oxidation of unsaturated fatty acids, and maintains the integrity of cell membranes. The deficiency, it leads to reproductive problems, which the nickname they say anti-sterility vitamin. The food sources are polyunsaturated plant oils, that is all the oils they contain vitamin E, that is soybean oil, corn oil, and then you have the beef germ, sunflower seeds, and then you have sweet potatoes. They are all rich sources of vitamin E, that is the tocopherol. And then you have the vitamin K, which is also called as phylloquinone. It is for the synthesis of blood clotting proteins. It regulates blood calcium also. It is necessary for the formation of several blood clotting factors in the liver. And you have the prothrombin. It is a vitamin K dependent protein directly involved with blood clotting. And there is also osteocalcin. It is another protein that requires vitamin K to produce healthy bone tissues. And the deficiency, what exactly is, since they're all related with the blood, that is the bleeding disorders. But it is very rare. It is not common. It is very rare. So what are the food sources to consume green leafy vegetables? Are the main sources, and the liver as well as the cabbage. Then the B complex vitamins, all of you are aware, there is a capsules which they take it as supplements also. The most important under B complex is thiamine, which we call it as B1. It supports the energy metabolism and nerve functions, and it functions as thiamine pyrophosphate, okay, which call it as TPP. It is a coenzyme for several enzymes, and it is involved in decarboxylation reactions. For example, in the oxidation of glucose due to its role in decarboxylation to pyruvate. Then you have more severe thiamine deficiency, which we call it as beriberi, because here it causes the muscle loss, diminished feelings in the hands and the feet. And what are the things you have to say? That is the boiled rice, okay? Then you have the spinach, green peas are good sources, tomato, watermelon, and then among the animal foods, the pork is a rich source of thiamine. It also contains good amount in soya milk. The next B complex, which we call it as B2, is riboflavin. It supports energy metabolism, normal vision, as well as skin health. And then it is like a precursor. We have two, one is FAD and FMN. Okay, the FAD is flavin adenine dinucleotide, and then FMN is flavin mononucleotide. They are the servers of the hydrogen carriers in a number of important oxidation reduction, that is for the respiration reactions. Then you have the food sources for them. Riboflavin is milk and milk products, and then green leaf vegetables and many of the fruits here. So most of the deficiency, it leads to glossitis, cheolosis, or you have the boils at the corner of the mouth. Then the niacin, which is a B3, the most two common factors, the forms are nicotinic acid and nicotinamide. So what is their role? It supports energy metabolism, skin health, nervous system, as well as the digestive system. So what are the precursors? The precursors to the coenzymes, that is, which we call it as NAD, that is a nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and is one more NADPH, which is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. These serve as hydrogen carriers in important processing, especially the glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and also oxidative phosphorylation. So the severe deficiency of this leads to pellagra. And the food sources are the tomatoes, potatoes, then the chicken, the animal foods, peanuts, and the yeast. They are also the yeast which is used in the making of bread and bran. They are all good sources of niacin. Then you have pantothenic acid, which we call it as B5. It supports energy metabolism, and the precursor to coenzyme A, which is an enzyme critical to the oxidation or synthesis of carbohydrates and fatty acids. And here it is the animal foods. And sometimes in the foods also there are fortified cereals with pantothenic acid and some vegetables. Then you have the pyridoxine, which is of three forms: pyridoxine, pyridoxal, and pyridoxamine. And there is a pyridoxal 5-phosphate, which we call it as PLP, is the active coenzyme form and most common measure for B6 blood levels in the body. And then you have it helps in amino acid and fatty acid metabolism, and also for RBC production. The precursor is to pyridoxal phosphate, a coenzyme for several important reactions, especially the protein metabolism, that is, which involves the transmission reactions necessary for synthesis of amino acids. And suppose if it is deficit in the diet, then you lead to microcytic anemia. The food sources are, it is rich source of banana, watermelon, tomatoes, and then you have the green leaf vegetables, potato, and some amount in the rice and chicken. And then there is a B complex, which is B7, which we call it as biotin. It helps in energy metabolism, fat synthesis, amino acid metabolism, glycogen synthesis. The functions as a coenzyme for several enzymes which catalyzes the carboxylation, decarboxylation, and deaminization reactions. The example you can take pyruvate carboxylase or essential enzyme of Krebs cycle. So what are the food sources? Actually, it is present in almost all the foods. And then you have the folic acid, which we call it as B9. It helps in the synthesis, that is DNA synthesis, as well as new cell formation. It also serves as a coenzyme for synthesis of several amino acids, as well as purines and thymine, and therefore DNA. Folate is also needed to produce healthy RBC and is critical during periods of rapid growth, such as during pregnancy and fetal development. That is why during that time, they give the iron and folic acid supplements. Deficiencies typically manifest as growth failure and anemia. The food sources are, of course, it is present in almost all the vegetables. Okra, it's a good source. Then you have the other peas, they are also rich sources of folic acid. Then you have the cobalamin, which we call it as B12. So vitamin B12 nowadays, for all the, even when you go for health checkup, they usually say along with vitamin D, you also should estimate vitamin B12 because it leads to pernicious, one type of anemia. So it is naturally found, most of it is found only in the animal foods, and it is needed to form red blood cells as well as DNA. And then it helps for the brain and nerve cells, and also for the maintenance, and helps in the breakdown of fatty acids, amino acids, and it contains cobalt because the name itself is cobalamin. So which is a coenzyme, it is involved in the numerous metabolic pathways, and also some of the pharmacy industries, they use this. And deficiency, it results in the pernicious anemia, and all the animal foods and milk and eggs, they are rich source of B12. So all of you know vitamin C. It is found in all the citrus fruits. Those are the food sources. And deficiency is for the scurvy. So what are the main functions? It is for collagen synthesis, amino acid metabolism, iron absorption, immunity. It acts as antioxidant. A major function is for the hydroxyproline, which is a component of collagen. So thereby which gives all connective tissues. It is also important for growth of cartilage, bone, as well as teeth, and also for wound healing. And the deficiency we call is the bleeding of gum, that is the scurvy. So it is the, once here, I just summarize here the differences. So you have known what are fat soluble vitamins, you have known water soluble vitamins, that is B complex and vitamin C. So when you see the differences between them, in the case of absorption, water soluble are directly absorbed into the blood. But whereas fat soluble, first it goes to the limb and then to the blood. And transport, the water solubles travel very freely, but here many require, in the fat soluble, they require protein carriers. And in the case of storage, that is water soluble, they are circulated freely in water filled parts of the body. But whereas fat soluble, they are stored in the cells associated with fat. Then excretion, kidneys detect and remove excess in the urine. But whereas fat soluble, they are less readily excreted and they are stored. The toxicity, the possible to reach toxic level when consumed from supplements. See, when you take supplements, you have to be very careful. It should not be excess, both for big water soluble as well as the fat soluble. The requirement is perhaps it is 1 to 3 days, but whereas the requirement for fat soluble, it can go up to months also, weeks to months. So the deficiencies, you have the where energy level gets affected, mental fatigue, overall capacity, and then both of them, they are both minerals and vitamins causes sometimes even life-threatening conditions also it affects. So this is a glance which I have already told you. The goitin deficiency is goiter, whereas the thyroid gland, it should be only 25 grams, but it becomes 250 grams. So you see near the neck, it is the very excess of the enlargement. Then calcium, it is for bones and teeth. And in the children, it is which we call it as bow legs. Osteoporosis, that is skeletal structure in the case of adults. And osteomalacia, especially when you don't expose yourself to the sunlight or wearing a long time the burqa, then they get affected here. Iron is for the anemia, that is iron deficiency. Zinc, the poor pregnancy outcome. Fluoride, you have excess, that is dental as well as the skeletal, that we call it as dental fluorosis and skeletal fluorosis. If the fluorine level in the water goes above 3 to 5 ppm or 5 to 10 ppm, these are the disorders, that is excess toxicity. And selenium, it is for cardiomyopathy and is also for the cardiovascular risk. Then you have vitamin A, which we have said it is for the vision, And then you have the deficiency causes night blindness, whiteout spots, cornea, xerosis cornea, xerosophthalmia. And then you have B6, megaloblastic anemia, and B12 is for pernicious anemia. Thiamine, you have three forms, which we call dry, wet, and infantile beriberi. Riboflavin, as say glossitis, you have. Niacin is pellagra, that is, which is the symptoms of dermatitis, that is, the skin gets affected, diarrhea, dementia, where nervous system gets affected, and death. Then you have the B6, neurological disorders. Vitamin C is the fatigue, and then low resistance to infection, that is the scurvy, and vitamin D is rickets, and then osteomalacia and osteoporosis. So coming to RDA, here I have given to the RDA. What is an RDA? This is the latest 2020 figures. An RDA is the quantity of a nutrient present in the diet which satisfies the daily requirement of nearly all the individuals in a population. It is also referred to as daily reference intake. Okay, that is DRI. So how is it? Here, this has been calculated by National Institute of Nutrition. They have a scientific committee under the Indian Council of Medical Research. Here, how do they take into consideration? The first one, they take the age and sex, dietary intakes, physiological state, physical activity, whether they're sedentary, moderate, or heavy workers. Then you have the growth, nutrient balance, then obligatory nutrient loss, then depletion repletion studies, factorial approach, and nutrient turnover. So here you can see, here I have just focused on boys and girls from 10 to 12 years. All these factors are common, but here the requirements changes according to their body weight. So that sedentary is the normal work. Moderate is the field workers, which we call them moderate. Heavy workers are the stone cutters. That is and for women, again, it is classified as pregnant and lactating. And for infants, it is 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. And children are classified as 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, and 7 to 9 years. And school going children from 10 to 18 years. So these requirements are very, very important for you to know how much you should take per day. And then finally, we'll come to what is a balance diet. That is my plate. What does your plate contain? The plate has to have sufficient amounts of the whatever I have mentioned, because it promotes health, it prevents hidden hunger, and it protects everybody from the disease. So you see the plate here. The plate, half of it is fruits and vegetables, and half of it are the cereals, then fats and oils, nuts and oilseed, and pulses. And along with that, you have the milk or the curds you can take. This is the my plate concept. So in the my plate, you should have both macronutrients and micronutrients so that you will not get any hidden hunger, which we call it as the micronutrients malnutrition. So the proportion indicated in the chart, it should have all the vitamins and minerals. It should have bioactive compounds. It should have functional foods and also antioxidants. Then you should not take, when doctor recommends, you can just take supplements for some time, but that should not be the regular one. Routine consumption of these nutrients will interfere with absorption of other nutrients. Then micronutrients and are better absorbed and more bioavailable than vitamins and mineral supplements, whether you take in the form of tablets, capsules, or whatever it is. Then in the regular consumption, you have to have, if you take proper food like the my plate, it maintains good microbial flora. That is, it is beneficial bacteria in the intestine. It also prevents, if you have good amount of fruits, vegetables, and adequate amount of all the nutrients, it prevents diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular diseases, heart attack, and many other diseases. Then it also maintains alkalinity and reduces the chances of kidney stone. And it prevents insulin resistance and maintains appropriate insulin sensitivity and glycemic index. You must have heard GI. So anything less than 50 and 60, we say low GI. More than 70 or 80, we say high GI, and then moderate GI. So millets, majority of them have got a moderate GI. So through the glycemic index also, you will know how to modulate your diet. It also ensures adequate intake of fiber, prevents constipation, and prevents adverse effects of environmental pollution and toxins such as heavy metals and pesticides by working as a detoxifying diet. So now coming, so you know what are macronutrients on my plate, which I have covered to be healthy. But why are our diets unhealthy? The reason is many of you prefer processed foods. You skip the meals, but you fill your stomach with the processed foods. Look at them, they're so colorful and you get tempted. There are the finger chips, there are the burgers, there are the chocolates, and there are the soft drinks. So when we did any survey work also, all the adolescents after the school hours, they run to the shop to buy all processed foods. So these processed food, what are the nutritive value of this? The French fries, which are very popular, what do they contain? They contain high calories and high fat. So what are the French fries? You have McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Arby's. So all these, it ranges the calories from 300 to 550. Are they good? No. Then you have the burgers. When you try to go and order burger or consume, please see this board. There are hamburgers, cheeseburgers, double cheeseburgers, bacon, woofer. You have single quarter pound king, different kinds of burgers. What do they contain? High calories, high fat, that is more than 10 to 81 grams of fat, high carbohydrates. See here itself it is given, it ranges from 260 to here this bacon king, it has got 1200 calories. They are not really good for health. So you have to avoid such kind of foods. Then you have the nutritive value of the cakes and pastries. Say if it is a birthday or some function or any of the parties, there's absolutely no problem. Once in a way you can take. But you cannot have these foods regularly because they're high in calories, high sugar, and high fat. So what exactly you should do is please read the labeling because nutrition information is always given on the labels per 100 grams. So here you take, for example, I have taken this cake. So what does this cake contain? Carbohydrate 58 grams. And whereas of which sugars are 26.5, that is nearly 27 grams. Proteins are very less, only 5 grams. Fats are more, 17 grams. That too saturated fats are 8 grams. Monounsaturated is 7.2 gram. Polyunsaturated is 1.7 gram. And trans fat, that is, they say 0. And please remember, cholesterol is 65 milligram. Energy is 405 calories. So depending always, the paper talks we say, that is the nutrition information labeling, that is there is different kinds of labeling nowadays, smart labeling and other things. You should have awareness of this, read the label and then buy any of the products. So then that is the reason where we have developed a booklet also has been developed. It is says what, where and how you eat is matter. That is what you eat, where exactly you are eating, and then how you are eating. So these factors are very important because they are the key tips which helps in the healthy habits for the adolescents, which we have developed under this project as a module. So what are the key tips? The main thing I tell you, limit screen time. All of you are very busy. When we did the survey of adolescents, both rural, peri-urban and urban, the limit television, that is video games and computers, they go, it is used 1 to 2 hours daily. No, sometimes it goes even 3 to 4 hours. So these activities can lead to errating eat habits, overeating, because they keep watching the TV or the mobiles, and the consumption of many processed foods are heavy. So one has to have a check on that. Healthy eating, that is, please avoid skipping meals. Many of them miss the breakfast. When we asked the reasons, they said they don't like what the mother has prepared, or they have no time, or they prefer to eat some other processed food near the school. No, this is not correct. Smart snacking. Your snack should limit for 1 to 2 per day, not more. And you have to focus on low calories. Especially you can consume fruits and vegetables which are seasonally available, but try to avoid potato chips and fried foods. Hydration, you should always drink good amount of water, which I have already mentioned, 6 to 8 glasses. Try to avoid or reduce your soft drinks, which are very high in calories. And then it is good always if you maintain a dietary diet. That is a diary which we say that you can, once you are obese, you can always record it and see to it that body weight can be maintained. Regular exercise is very important. Of course, in schools, you do have the exercise, but apart from that, you should participate in sports, walking, bike, the use of bike, then yoga for at least 30 minutes daily. Then substance use awareness. See, especially at this age, there are some people are tempted to have tobacco, alcohol, and drugs, which really harms the nutrition and overall health. So, seeking nutrition intervention and counseling whenever you require. Regional differences. Recognize that there are guidelines may apply differently in rural areas where adolescents may have a higher activity levels due to agriculture tasks because they help their parents. Potentially, it increases leading to energy and protein needs, which is very important. Socioeconomic factors are the most important. The adolescents from affluent rural families may also face challenges to sedentary lifestyle disorders and calorie-rich diets. So promoting these habits is essential for the health and well-being of adolescents, especially regardless of the geographical and socioeconomic backgrounds. So what are the food safety? Along with this, you also need the food safety, where we have published a book on food safety under the project in our from the Department of Food Science and Nutrition. A lot of training programs also have been organized by all the faculty members. And then the first thing is hand hygiene is very important during Corona time. I'm sure all of us are aware that 20 seconds minimum should be used. And then safe food handling, which is very important. Avoid cross-contamination, especially with the meat foods. And for food storage is very, very important, 4 degrees centigrade. And leftover foods or freeze leftovers, which has to be taken care. And also avoid consuming raw eggs. Because sometimes these adolescent boys, they want to have the bodybuilding, so they do thing, but it's not good because they carry the risk of salmonella contamination. So it is better you consume the cooked one. Meat and poultry, you should be safe whenever you bring it, and heating and reheating is also very important here. And then you have it's always nice to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, but you have to always rinse them, clean them so that you with the water, so that you remove dirt and bacteria. And then avoid unpasteurized foods because it's always better to have pasteurized, especially with the milk and milk products. And then mindful eating, that is pay attention expiry dates, and then avoid consuming expired items because by the smell itself you will know it, so be careful with that. Proper microwave, don't keep on heating the food many times, and reusing of the oils also because it is not good for health. Stay informed. Keep up with food recalls and alerts. Always you should have some knowledge of nutrition. So you have to have informed, try to read many articles or some folders or leaflets or books, which gives you the latest information about the thing. Here we have published from our department also many of the culinary journey, that is nourishing indigenous. We focus more on traditional foods and anemia. Then also in the schools to start a nutrition garden where they can use for midday meal program, and food safety issues, micronutrient treasure, and reviving traditional foods for dietary diversity. And also, so finally, I would like to conclude. Of course, there was one question about the consumption of coffee, caffeine, and all that. Yes, the consumption of the coffee, you can have 2 to 3 cups, not more than 2 cups, which we recommend. One in the morning, 1 cup of coffee, and tea you can have in the evening. Excess of caffeine is also not good because the appetite gets changed and you try to eat more food and it is not good for health. And then, so finally, I would like to conclude, macro and micronutrients are very, very essential because only when you start with deficiency in supplements, it is not good. So try to eat the My Plate, which I have shown you. Eat lot of fruits and vegetables and adequate amount of cereals, pulses, fats and oils, and milk products, and limit yourself for the fats and oils. Consume balanced diet. Know your nutrient RDA. The nutrient RDA you should know. What is your weight? How do you calculate BMI? And how much of the RDA table foods you have to take. Maintain dietary diversity. It is very, very important because FAO has given the dietary diversity. Don't keep on eating only one cereal daily. Try to eat rice, try to eat chapatis, and try to eat finger millet or any of the millet products. Eat maize products. So you should have diversity in the pulses also. You should have different types of pulses or sometimes mixed pulses and different vegetables because we classify vegetables as green leafy vegetables, other vegetables, roots and tubers. So you should have different kinds of vegetables, among the fruits, whatever is available in the seasonal fruits. Do not consume processed food. Try to avoid to the maximum. It is not only for the school children, even for the parents, we always advise, see, try to avoid many of these chocolates and sugaries and pastries and other things, because they are not really good, and it leads, because once from the childhood you have the obesity and the malnutrition, it occurs in the adult age also, and that because of the lifestyle disorders, and which we call it as non-communicable diseases. Instead, consume traditional meals are very, very important. And whatever you want to eat snacks, let it be nutrient snack, which you can prepare. For example, there was chicky, we call it, is with a groundnut and jaggery. They are all good sources for a snack, and do regular exercise. So I thank you. That is myself, Vijayalakshmi, and then Dr. Barbara Brunal. And if any of the questions are there, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, madam.
Yeah, yes, sir. It's over.
Madam, thank you very much for a very informative and insightful talk. We are grateful
Thank you,
to you
sir.
for your time
No,
and
no, not at all. It is, of course, it is
presentation.
part of a project also, sir, we had done on adolescents. So we know what is their intake and why they go skipping meals and eating of the processed foods. So
Yes,
when you asked me to give a lecture focusing for school children, I
Yes,
was
sir.
quite happy to share our own experiences, because we gave them a lot of nutrition knowledge and nutrition gardens in our project, which was helpful, especially we focused with the government school children. So this way it was very useful information was there. Thank you very much, sir,
Yes,
for
sir.
giving the opportunity.
It is very useful for PU students.
Yes,
In
sir.
biology, they have a topic on nutrients. So
Okay.
this particular talk will be of it will be very greatly useful to the students in their
Okay.
exam also. I'm sure students would have got a lot of take-home message from your
Yeah.
talk. And are there any questions, Umesh?
Madam has answered for that question, sir, already.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I have answered, sir, because I was reading in that columns.
In the chat box.
Yeah. So that is how I answered that, because in the chat they had put some questions. So that is why I was able to answer it.
Oh, very nice. So thank you very much, madam.
No, sir, you're welcome at any time. Feel free to invite us. No problem.
Encouragement.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Future
you.
programs also grateful to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, Umesh. No
Yes, ma'am.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Students, thank you very much for your patience and being with us for 1 hour. And madam's talk was really very good, very informative. I'm sure you will get a lot of message from it.
Is there any nutrient deficiency?
And is there any nutrient deficiency in hybrids?
Yeah, there is a question.
Yeah, there is a question, madam.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. I'm Dr. Mrinal Barbe. I'm research associate working under Dr. Vijayalakshmi D's project. So actually, ma'am just told me if you want to interact, answer the questions. But in hybrids, basically, they try to, as per my knowledge goes, they actually try to, if there is a deficiency or if there is a problem with the crop, they try to improve. So it is not like hybrids are deficient in nutrients. And majority of the grains that we eat now are hybrids. So that is, the answer is no to it.
But you can fortify it.
Yeah, fortified.
Iron and zinc.
Yeah.
Sapna Anigol, who asked question.
Yeah,
is
she asked that question.
National
You
award.
can have biofortification, or we say in the agriculture, from the soil they fortify now. That can be taken up. But in the hybrid, no, you can't call it as deficiency. We can't call.
Oh, what
Is
else?
it okay?
One more.
Okay. Okay.
And regarding BT products,
Beauty
are
products.
there
That
any
is again a very controversial topic because we don't want genetically, we are not very open to accept genetically modified foods as such. Though we have BT cotton, we can't still accept BT brinjal. So that's still a controversial thing. But it's not bad. The research has both ways, it's 50-50. Some state that it is bad, but some research do. There is almost like 60% research that say that it is a good, no genetic problems have been happening. So there is no problem in BT, but we are still not in a position to accept as a customer.
Sir, some of our MSc and PhD students have worked on that, sir, both BT as well as the thing. They didn't find much difference in it, but the mindset has to be changed, sir. It takes some more time because policies are in a different way.
So thank you very much for both of you. In future as well, we'll be inviting you for.
Definitely, sir. Please do not hesitate. We'll always be there. Thank you, sir.
Sapna madam and all the participants, thank you very much. ಏನಾದ್ರು ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ದಯಮಾಡಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಕೇಳಿ, ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಥ ಸಪ್ನಾ ಮೇಡಮ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್. ಹುಡುಗರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೀವು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವ್ಯೂ ಇಂದ ಅಂತ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜನರಲ್ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಗೂ ಸಹ ಕೆಲವು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿಗಳು ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಅಂತ ನನ್ನ ಭಾವನೆ. ನಾಳೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸಿದ್ದೇಗೌಡ್ರೆ, ನಾಳೆ ಯಾರ್ದು ಟಾಕ್ ಇರೋದು?
ರೋಹಿತ್ ಸರ್. ರೋಹಿತ್ ಸರ್.
ನಾಳೆ ರೋಹಿತ್ ಅವರು ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಟಾಕ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ತಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೀಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಅದ್ರ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಪಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಈಗ ಸರ್, ವಾಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಹೈ ಕೆಫೀನ್ ಕಂಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಫುಡ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇ ಗುಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್? ಕೆಫಿನ್ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ, ಮೇಡಮ್ ಈಗಾಗ್ಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕೆಫಿನ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗುಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತಗೋಬಾರ್ದು, 1 or 2 cup is okay ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅದನ್ನೇ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಐ ಅಗ್ರಿ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ವಾಸ್ ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಬಟ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ವೆರಿ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ವಿತ್ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್. ಎಸ್, ಅಫ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಈ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಆದ್ರೂ ಸಹ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವರ ಒಂದು PU ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ SLC ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಆದ ಹಲವಾರು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಈ ಒಂದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ನ ನಾವು ಇರಿಸಿದ್ದು. ಅದು ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ವಿಸ್ತೃತವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಅದರ ಡೆಫಿಷಿಯನ್ಸಿಯಿಂದ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸವಿವರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ತಾವು ನೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು. ಇಲ್ಲದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೊಂದ್ಸರಿ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ನ ನೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಕಳಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲೂ ಮುಂದೆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ನಲ್ಲೂ ಸಹ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಆದ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ತಜ್ಞರಿಂದ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಬಬ್ಲಿ ನವೆಂಬರ್ ಕೊನೆಯ ಒಳಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್, ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ಸ್, ದೆನ್ ಬಯಾಲಜಿಲಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ತಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬೇಗ ತಲುಪಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಏರ್ಪಾಡು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.